In the timeline of human history, there are moments that feel silent at first, moments that whisper before they roar, moments when the world believes everything is stable, right before everything breaks. And as we approach late 2026 and cross into 2027, that whisper is getting louder. Something is coming. Something bigger than the crash of 1929. Something more destructive than 2008. And the signs are no longer subtle. They are everywhere. For years, the global economy has been held together with temporary fixes, borrowed confidence, and hope wrapped in paper promises. But beneath the surface, pressure has been building. Quietly, relentlessly, like a fault line waiting for the right moment to shift. And when it shifts, the world will feel it, because the story of the coming crash doesn't begin in 2026. It began years before, when governments printed trillions to save markets, when interest rates danced between extremes, when debt grew faster than the global economy, and when people started believing the illusion that markets could rise forever. But no cycle escapes reality. No bubble floats endlessly. Every high meets a low, every boom meets a reckoning. And now, that reckoning is near. Look around. Nations drowning in debt. Markets inflated beyond logic. Housing unaffordable for entire generations. Banks stretched thinner than they admit. And ordinary people? They sense something is wrong, even if they can't explain it. You can feel it in the price of everything. You can feel it in the tightening budgets. You can feel it in the fear behind every economic forecast. The world is preparing, quietly, subtly, for a shock. Late 2026 marks the convergence of multiple global stresses, economic, geopolitical, industrial, and social, all hitting the same pressure point. And history has shown what happens when multiple crises collide. It never ends softly, it ends suddenly. Think of 1929. Markets soaring, optimism rising, people confident the good times would last forever. Then, one crack, one collapse, one chain reaction. That's all it took to wipe out fortunes, destroy businesses, and plunge millions into darkness. Now imagine a world far more complex, far more connected, far more fragile than 1929. Imagine what happens when that world breaks. Think of 2008. A housing bubble built on lies, banks playing with fire, and the entire global system pushed to the edge by a single sector collapsing. Now imagine today, every sector overstretched. Housing, stock markets, corporate debt, national debt, global supply chains, geopolitics, all tangled together. One failure could pull the rest down, like a tower built too high. But this time, something is different. This time, the world has fewer tools to fix the fall. Because governments used their safety nets long ago. Interest rates can't fall endlessly, money printing can't continue forever. And public trust? It's thinner than ever. In 2026 and 2027, the world will face something it hasn't faced in nearly a century. The limits of its own financial imagination. Across continents, people will feel the shift. Jobs won't disappear suddenly, but slowly, quietly, like a tide pulling back before the wave hits. Small businesses will strain first, then mid-sized industries, then corporations once considered unshakable. Layoffs won't be announced with alarm. They'll be disguised as restructuring. Governments won't call it a crisis. They'll call it temporary adjustments. But the people, they will know. They will feel the tightening pressure long before the headlines admit it. Markets will react like they always do, first with denial, then with panic. The first cracks will appear in places no one expects. A major company failing, a bank freezing withdrawals, a country quietly defaulting, and when the panic begins, it will move faster than in any previous era. Because today, information spreads in seconds. Fear spreads in milliseconds, and panic doesn't need permission. In this new era, wealth will shift violently. Some will lose everything, people who trusted the bubble. People who believed in promises, people who thought the system couldn't break, but others will rise, not because they're lucky, but because they're prepared. Because they looked past the headlines and saw the truth forming beneath. Because they understood that every crash in history also created a new beginning. But before that beginning, comes the fall. The fall that resets markets, the fall that exposes the weaknesses we ignored, the fall that forces the world to rebuild. And that fall is what late 2026 is leading us toward. Consider the global debt crisis. Never in history has so much money been borrowed so fast by so many nations. It's the largest debt bubble ever recorded. And when interest rates rise, debt becomes a weapon. One that cuts through budgets, cuts through economies, cuts through stability. As countries struggle to pay what they owe, services crumble, confidence collapses, and the foundations of society begin to shake. Consider inflation. Even when it slows, prices do not return to normal. The world is learning the painful truth that once affordability is lost, it rarely comes back. People working harder, earning less, paying more. That slow suffocation leads to anger, and anger leads to instability. Consider global tension, wars, trade conflicts, energy crises, political division. No economy thrives in chaos. And 2026 is shaping up to be one of the most geopolitically unstable years of the century. These pressures aren't isolated. They feed each other. They multiply. And eventually, they explode. Many experts won't admit this publicly. Markets depend on confidence. Banks depend on stability. Governments depend on calm. But history does not depend on hope. History depends on pressure, and pressure is building. The crash of 2026-2027 won't look like previous crashes. It will be different, deeper, and more far-reaching. It won't be caused by one mistake, but by years of ignoring the truth. It won't be one market falling, but many. Stocks, housing, bonds, currencies, everything tied together. And yet, within the destruction, there will be clarity, because crisis reveals truth. Crisis forces change. Crisis wipes away the illusions that blinded us. And after the fall, the world will rebuild, not the same, but stronger, cleaner, more honest, more prepared for the future. But before that light comes the storm. In the late months of 2026, the signs will no longer be whispers. They will be warnings, markets shaking, governments announcing emergency measures, companies collapsing under debt, banks tightening rules, ordinary people rushing to protect what little they have left. And as 2027 begins, the storm reaches its peak. Some will panic, some will freeze, some will lose hope. But others will understand that the darkest moments of history have always been followed by the most dramatic rebirths. Every crash has a purpose. Every collapse clears the path for something new. But to survive what's coming, people must see it first. They must prepare. They must understand that ignoring the storm does not stop it. Only knowledge does. Only awareness, only action. So when the world shakes, when markets fall, when headlines scream, remember this moment. Remember that you were warned not in fear, but in truth. Because the future does not belong to those who wait for safety. The future belongs to those who adapt. The crash of 2026-2027 will test nations, systems, and individuals in ways they never expected. But history has always favored the informed, the resilient, the people who turn crisis into opportunity. And when the world emerges on the other side, they will be the ones who rise. The storm is coming. The signs are here. The pressure is building. And the world is about to change, not softly, not slowly, but in a way that will be remembered for generations. And when it happens, the question won't be whether the Class H arrived. The question will be, were you ready?